Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show. I have a different kind of episode for you today. I've talked about how there's been some weird things going on around my house, and maybe today we can get to the bottom of it. My first guest is a comedian who has performed all around the world, is a frequent guest on the show, and most importantly today, is a paranormal investigator. It's the one and only Karen Rontowski. How you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing really well. Before we get into it, how long have you been doing paranormal investigation and what drew you to it?
I guess actual investigation, probably around 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
And it was just always something that I loved and pursued it. And I finally started to look online when Ghost Hunters came out. I started to look on this thing called meetup.com to meet people who did it. And that's really how I got started with groups and learning and stuff like that. But I was always really sort of into the whole thing. So it wasn't a far leap to get involved.
I want to set the stage a little bit for any new listeners out there. About a year or two ago, I had you on the show to go over some paranormal stuff that was happening in my house back then. I was wondering if it had something to do with my mom who had passed away. You told me that she is here, but the entity doing the things around the house was another woman. The next day I was telling my dad about what you said. He owned the house years ago. He said, I wonder if she's talking about the lady who killed herself here, which is something I had never heard of growing up in this house. So paranormal wise, you seem to be in touch with my house more than I am.
Well, you know what? It's hardest when you live there because you also don't want to think about that. You know what I mean? You just don't want to picture that.
I definitely know what you mean. Recently, things have started happening again. We've talked about the balloon incidents and other stuff, but this was a lot more startling. I talked about it recently on the show, but I want to go over it again since I have an expert here. The lights have started flickering around the house for the past couple of weeks. Haven't thought much about it. Looking back, it seems kind of odd because my dad's a certified electrician and we rewired the entire house. So everything is brand new, been running fine for years. So on a Friday, my kid was in the bathroom. She said the lights started flickering and then they just turned off, but so did her cell phone. She ran out, comes into my living room all freaked out. To be honest, I just kind of blew it off because she's a pretty dramatic 13-year-old. And like I said, I really didn't think much about it. I thought, well, the lights have been flickering. Who knows what happened? Well, she goes upstairs to watch TV in her room, and I'm in my living room watching TV. My wife's in her living room watching TV, which her setup is pretty much exactly opposite of mine. So all of a sudden, the rooms facing the living room that I'm in start flickering like crazy, and they all turn off completely and then come back on. My wife didn't see anything because she's facing the opposite way, but nothing happened in my living room or her living room. My daughter yells downstairs, and apparently the same thing happened in her bedroom. The strange thing is, this time she was FaceTiming a friend, and her phone was shut off when the power went out. But
okay.
All of those lights are on about 5 different fuses, and maybe 6 on different sides of the panel in my fuse box, yet all of them were on the same side of the house when this place used to be a duplex back in the day.
Interesting. I find it really good and handy that your dad is an electrician, so you can kind of debunk that pretty quick. That's a very, very handy thing.
Here's another caveat is I called my dad. I called his landline from my cell phone to see if he had any idea what would be happening. And as I'm telling him about my daughter's phone ending when the lights went out, our call ended too. But my phone is set up on Wi-Fi calling. So while I'm at my house, it shouldn't have lost a signal. And he was on a landline, so it couldn't have dropped the call on his end. And then that night, I called somebody on Facebook Messenger. And when I was telling them about my call going out with my dad, the call dropped again on the phone with the person I was talking to.
Okay. So all kinds of stuff. All right.
Yeah. I've talked about this a few episodes ago, but something has happened since then. And we were recently cooking dinner, and all of the lights started flickering in the kitchen. Then they just went out. The lights, the refrigerator, the oven, the lights above the oven. For about 3 seconds, while everything was out, the lights above the oven were glowing kind of red, which was kind of creepy because in a dark room, it just looked like a pair of eyes. And then everything came back on. It was just long enough to notice, get freaked out, and then everything came on like everything was normal. And I called my dad and I said, "Hey, you got to come over. I don't know what's going on, but there's a problem." And we looked in the fuse box because we thought, well, something's obviously corroded. There has to be an explanation. There's a mouse in there, something. We opened it up. Everything was perfectly fine. There's really just no explanation. The funny part is he told me to try to keep track of the times that this happened so we can figure out what time of day it is or what's on, what's off. Absolutely nothing has happened since then.
Interesting. Well, there's a couple of things that it could be. Although it seems very specific, like it's one room and not another, you could check out solar flares. You could look at NASA sites. Your dad is absolutely right about keeping the when and the where, because you can check out solar, that kind of stuff. But it sounds to me like a lot of it, when you said you were in the kitchen with your wife, was your daughter around then?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say there's a possibility this is working around your daughter?
I have been thinking that, but haven't said it out loud.
Okay. That's not a bad thing. Usually a poltergeist is not a ghost. It's an energy coming off of a very psychic, usually a girl, and it's usually a teen or somebody that is going through puberty. So it might actually be your daughter, especially if you said she's kind of a dramatic. It might be her energy doing it. That's one option.
Okay.
The second option is that it may be something in your house trying to get your attention. Your dad is right. Write down everything, and we will revisit this if things continue. It could be that lights on and off and that kind of stuff is very easy for a human spirit to do and to manipulate. They can manipulate things energetically. The phone doesn't feel along the same lines for some reason, but the lights flickering, I definitely, it seems like somebody's trying to get your attention. Now, when was the last time that this happened?
I would say about 4 or 5 days ago.
Okay. And is this usual for you to go 4 or 5 days with nothing happening?
Yeah, because it just seemed to happen maybe, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago. And it was very minimal. I just thought, I need to change the light bulb here and there. And then it just sort of progressed until the Friday incident where it just was almost out of control. I mean, it was very much an attention-grabbing thing. And after that, it just kind of died down. And once I had somebody come out and check the panel and make sure everything was okay, it happened at midnight that night because I was trying to keep track of when it happens. And nothing has happened since that night.
Okay, well, good. Well, do this. Definitely get in touch with me and keep notes if it happens again, because this is what I would advise. I would say do the best you can at the moment to not do anything. Okay? And here's the good part. It's just flashing lights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody's getting harassed or any sort of thing like that. So there is always a possibility this will just go away.
Okay.
Okay. And that's where I would start before I had anybody come in or take you know what I mean? Once you sort of open that door of communication, the door is open.
Right.
And it's a little bit of a different game. I know this is a weird way to say it, but kind of keep an eye on your daughter's moods, what's going on with her when this happens.
Okay.
Did your daughter have any psychic abilities or anything, or always kind of seeing ghosts when she was little? Anything like that you know of?
She's, I was going to make a joke. I don't know if I should do that. I was going to say she's psychotic, but I don't know if she's psychic. I don't think that's right.
That's funny. She's a teenage girl.
Right. But nothing that I'm really aware of. Nothing that we've explored anyway, or she's talked about.
Okay. I think she would know. Also, it kind of feels weird, but there are certain times of the year when, when Mercury is retrograde. The reason people talk about that, it's when the planet Mercury actually looks like it's going backwards in the chart. It's called Mercury because there's actually a lot of Mercury in the planet. So sometimes when it's closely passing the Earth, that's why they say technology has a lot of trouble, because it's almost like a big magnet going by. So things can kind of tend to malfunction. And I think we just came out of Mercury retrograde back a little bit at the end of March. I don't think it was March 28th, which is a little late. But is also the other thing is, has there been anything else other than lights?
No. Recently, in the last 2 weeks or so, they've been tearing down the house right across the street, which was an old house that has been here my entire life. I wonder if maybe that stirred something up. And like you said, when we moved in, it kind of kicked something up where it was curious. Maybe that's along the same lines. I don't know.
It absolutely could. And I'm sorry if I moved away from the phone. I'm shuffling my cards real quick. I'm just going to check one thing.
Okay.
Electronically, could that have had anything happen to your house? Them knocking things down next door?
No, because that house has been shut off as far as the power and things like that for probably 20 or 30 years.
Okay. Oh, that thing has had no power for 20 or 30 years?
No, it's been abandoned for a very long time, almost my entire life.
Oh, that could be the issue. Reason being, something was probably very, very comfortable there, so it might be passing through. I doubt that it will move from that house to your house. That's very rare. It may have scattered for the time, but it might just be going back to that house when things calm down.
Okay.
Do you know any history of that house or anything?
The people who live there now, it was their grandma's house.
It was abandoned or people lived there?
No, she lived there for years. She lived there for years, and then they lived in another place on the property. And when she passed away, it's been abandoned ever since.
Okay, so that's been abandoned for about 20 years.
Yeah, I would actually say probably about 30, maybe 35.
Wow. Okay, but it wasn't, it's not like dilapidated, is it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. That is probably what has started. Is the house all the way knocked down now, or are they still working on it?
Yeah, it's completely knocked down now.
Okay, and when did they finish knocking it down?
I guess around the same time. They finished knocking it down. There's still some debris in a hole where there used to be an unfinished basement. But for the most part, the dumpsters that they were putting stuff in, all that stuff is gone now.
Okay, so it probably quieted down right after. Would that be right around the same time your activity stopped?
Yeah, around there.
Okay, so that may have been, as hauntings go, you may have gotten the friendly neighbor wanting to know why their house was being knocked down and found no one could hear them in your house. So that could be one thing that's going on. I do think your daughter just might have a lot of energy. Like I said, we used to think Podergeist was a ghost, but it's not. It's actually energy coming off usually a young girl in puberty. So that might be it too. But the thing that I feel positive about now is that it's sort of been one thing. It's just they can manipulate the lights. That seems to be all they know how to do. But keep an eye on that and text me everything. If anything starts up more, we can get, I have a friend that can do research on the area.
Oh, nice.
And I have some other paranormal people you can talk to, and we can get a whole series going of stuff about what's going on in your house.
Oh, that would be awesome.
As long as it's kind of limited to that, but keep records of everything.
Okay.
If you ask me, it sounds like something is trying to get your attention. The house across the street would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I really didn't think about that until recently, and it just kind of, I just wasn't sure. I know this sounds stupid, but I was like, I don't think it can cross the street. But if it's alive after death, I don't see why not. I don't know why I put that weird barrier on it.
Yeah, and those but you should be okay. Like I said, once you start, like, we'll see. It's your house, and we can talk about, you setting standards of, hey, it's my house. You guys need to leave, or you need to be quiet if you live here. But yeah, I would say right now, just keeping track of everything. I know that's not a brilliant answer, but once people start doing too much cleansing or using sage, which you don't want to use, you're kind of going, oh yeah, please do talk to me. And the activity may get more. So you want to kind of calm it right now. Here's a couple of tips. If your wife likes candles or anything like that, or you have a essential oil diffuser or burn incense, you want to go with lavender. Lavender calms down everything. Stay away from vanilla smells and cookies, that kind of smell. And the more you do it, the more you sort of put this layer around your place. So incense, because I do a lot of tarot reading in my apartment, I do dragon's blood incense. But right now, you would just, a little lavender, around would really just keep things, you can't hurt, keeps things calm.
That sounds great. And I think now is a good time to ask this question. What is the latest going on with your podcast, Paranormal Karen?
Oh, everything's good. I'm just having a blast with it. Last week I had on a Bigfoot guy. I knew nothing about Bigfoot. It was fascinating. A whole bunch of new guests coming on. I believe Tom the demonologist is on this week. That you might enjoy that episode. Or if anybody is interested, I did an episode a while back with a woman named Tracy Huffman, and she literally had something demonic in her house. Ooh. And she told us how she got rid of it. So if anyone is worried about their house and wants to learn how to cleanse and do things right, that's a really good episode. But I think that, and thanks for that, Jason, but I think you're okay for now. Just keep dates, times, and text me whenever something happens.
Will do, and I appreciate you being on. Do you mind coming back maybe for my birthday episode in June to do a tarot reading?
Oh, I would love to. And even before June, if anything goes on, you just let me know.
All right, sounds great. I want to thank you once again for being on. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
This is Anthony Scaramucci, former White House Director of Communications. You are listening to We Don't Have Cookies.
Want to contact the show? Send an email to jason@wedon'thavecookies.com or call 929-266-9342 and leave a voicemail.
Just for those who are wondering, when the events happened in the house, nobody was working on the old house across the street at the moment it happened. It was usually in the evening or later at night. None of my other neighbors seemed to have had any problems with their power either. And the lights that were on above the oven when the incident in the kitchen happened, they're just regular white light bulbs for the range vent. When you turn them off, they just go off. It's not like you see them powering down or anything. So when they were glowing red for a second, it was really ominous. And I swear it looked like a pair of demonic eyes staring at us. Kind of shook me up, I'm not going to lie. Also, nothing has happened since my dad and I looked in the fuse box except for that quick flicker later that night. It's been a while, but everything seems to be fine now, so I have no idea what was going on. I was going to ask the paranormal investigators that were at my house before to come over to check the place out and have them on the show. I was also going to ask Dwight McCormick, who is the comedian and priest who blessed the house on an episode a few years ago, to be on the episode too, but once I talked to Karen and she said not to do anything else and see what happens, I didn't reach out to them about being on the show. I have become obsessed with the Yahtzee again, but I've been so busy lately, I haven't been on there as much as I used to be. Before recently, I was on a whole lot. They just started this new thing where you can create a family of 50 people on there. I mentioned it on the show before and asked listeners to join. Then I got really competitive, and instead of being a family for listeners, I started trying to bring in all the best players that I could find. Now it's the family with the most help points in the game and either first or second place in the competitions. Had no idea it would turn into that. I remember seeing some of the top teams and thinking that it would be impossible to be as big as they were, and here we are. And I've talked about some of the Yahtzee stalkers that I've had before, but I've never had so much drama from a game as I have this one lately. I'm not going to get into it all because it's something almost every day, but I will read this message that I got a few days ago. Quick backstory. There's a competition between families going on right now. I'm short a member, so I sent an invite to one person in each of the families below us in the rankings, and I got this message back from one of the leaders of the families. I won't dox her. I'm not going to put her username out there, but part of her name has something to do with being off the grid. Here's the message. Dirtbag move trying to steal our players. Can't win without our people. Says a lot. And I replied, it's a game. Settle down. Take a breath. I sent an invite at most 2. They won't leave if they don't want to. I'm sure none of your members ever came from another family, but that's not how others work. Seriously, someone off the grid should be way more chill. About a day or 2 later, she stepped down as the leader of her family and is not playing with them anymore. So she's probably just nuts. That kind of stuff happens a lot. I love this game, but sometimes... Anyway, if you're listening to this and you're a Yahtzee player, thanks for listening to the show. I know there's quite a few of you. Gina, Sherry, Stacy. I know I'm missing a lot of you. I'm sorry I didn't really plan to shout people out. But speaking of that, I don't think I'm going to do the honor roll segment anymore. I always forget to write things down or look on social media to see who did what. I know I owe Lone Wolf GAM a shout out, though. He's a great guy. That guy is always sharing the show online. And I really need to get better at social media. I say that all the time, but the only time I really think about it is when I mention how bad I am on the show. So if you're good at social media or you have any ideas on what I can do to promote the show, please let me know. I really got to start doing that. But like I said, I have been really busy lately. I have a huge week this week work-wise. I have a big landscaping project that I'm working on along with some other things. And I think I've talked about it before on the show, but I'm going to be cutting down a few hundred trees and planting about 80 or so, in addition to a bunch of berries and stuff like that. It's all starting this week. I spent a little over 30 hours last week in the yard prepping just for this week. So there may not be a show next week. I'm hoping there will be, but just wanted to give you a heads up. And that brings us to this week's Strange Days. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, Monday, April 29th is Batman Day. Hopefully one day this year it will be Robin Day, and that's about as likely as Haiku Astronomy Day. Tuesday is Honesty Day. I know a lot of people that should probably stay at home with their devices off that day. Friday is No Pants Day. A lot of people should probably stay at home that day too. It is also Space Day, which you may need a lot of since it's No Pants Day. Saturday is Herb Day and Free Comic Book Day, which seems like that should have happened on April 20th. And it is also Star Wars Day, so May the 4th be with you. May will be a lot of fun on the podcast. Darren Carter, the party starter, will be returning along with possibly Frank Cronin and Rhoda Young. I didn't have time to have them on today, but the podcast official weatherman Frankie McDonald will be back, and songs by John the Songman. So please help me out. Tell people about the show. Also, if you go to the website, wedon'thavecookies.com, click on the Get Involved tab. There's a list of ways that you can help out with the show, and most of them are free. But at the bottom of the page, if you want, there's also a donate button. Anything you can do to help out's really appreciated, from telling your friends to sending me $5. It all helps more than you know. And as busy as I am right now, I need all the help I can get. I want to thank Karen Rontowski for being on the show today, and all of you for listening. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.
Someone off the grid should be way more chill.